aerodynamics for private pilots, right? And what prompted me to do this was one of the fellas that just walked through the door and is walking up the front here lost a buddy of his or an associate in what appears to be a stall spin accident, right? And so I thought, you know what? I've been doing it. Doctor, sir, we just got started, sir. So I decided I would try to take some of my experience and pass it on in the hopes that maybe you might be able to correct some nasty situations before they arise. Stall spin accidents, they're all over the place. They're off the scale. And I have some opinions on what causes them. So I thought, you know, we only have a couple of 3 hours here. Of all the stuff you got to talk about, we can only cover probably tonight angle of attack. Plus I get these long-winded side stories that I got to tell you, war stories we go along. That'll take up most of the time. But it's all pretty simple. Uh-oh. Somebody erased all my stuff. Setner did. Well, that's great. I had all my videos up here. They're all gone now. Perfect.
Steve did it.
Yep. So I can do this by memory, but naturally this is going to take a few more minutes. I was supposed to just click on these things. Can you see what I'm typing?
Yep.
Yeah, might be type on it.
Aerodynamics is very simple, and this is kind of like a parallel to the course that you're about to hear. Okay, so I want you to pay attention. There's not really much to talk about, and John Cleaver's in this little rendition here. Pay attention now.
Now, before I begin the lesson, will those of you who are playing in the match this afternoon move your clothes down onto the lower page immediately after lunch? Before you write your letter home, if you're not getting your haircut, unless you've got a younger brother who's going out this weekend as the guest of another boy, in which case collect his note before lunch, put it in your letter after you've had your haircut, and make sure he moves your clothes down onto the lower peg for you. Now, sir.
Yes, my younger brother's going out with Dibble this weekend, sir, but I'm not having my hair cut today, sir, so my clothes.
Listen,
Quite simple.
perfectly simple. If you're not getting your hair cut, you don't have to move your brother's clothes down to the lower peg. You simply collect his note before lunch, after you've done your scripture prep, when you've written your letter home before rest, move your own clothes onto the lower peg, greet the visitors, and report to Mr. Viney that you've had your chicks signed.
Okay, now are there any questions? Uh-oh. See, now I got to stop this. I guess it's stopped. No, you can't stop it. So I just get a kick out of that. I just like putting that into ground school. Just simply if you would just listen. So where do we start, you think? Anybody have any ideas what we should start with?
At the beginning.
Which would be?
The Wright brothers.
Pick up the remote and fast forward.
Lift, drag.
Lift, drag. That's something right there. How do you get lift? Drag.
The airplane up a little bit.
What makes an airplane fly? That's what I want to get at.
What's that guy's name? The old Italian guy.
Bernoulli, right? Everybody's heard about Bernoulli, right? Everybody knows what Bernoulli is.
Bernoulli's wrong.
And when I was a kid, I'm telling you, when I was a kid, I sat in class. I guess they don't teach us stuff anymore, but they, you know, the air goes over the top of the wing and it creates a low pressure area and all that stuff. And when I was, how old are you when you're in grade? I'd already been flying airplanes upside down for quite a few years, 3 or 4 years, and model airplanes. And so I always said to the teacher, I said, well, if that's what makes an airplane fly, then how can an airplane fly upside down? And they'd get really you know, I can remember my teacher saying, "Oh, just forget about it, Billy. We're moving on." You know. But if that's what makes an airplane fly, then how come an airplane could fly upside down? Right? Why would that be?
You're still creating lift over the surface, even though it's going to the bottom of the wing and so the bottom of the aircraft. Right, you're still creating lift off that, although it's
And
much
how-
less than it is.
How are you creating lift?
Angle of the speed.
Angle of attack. And that's what we want to talk about. Bernoulli's theorem is a theorem that I think Hank's right. He is a step in the right direction, but and it certainly does benefit to shape an airfoil like that and take advantage of the Bernoulli idea. But flat wing will fly too because of an angle of attack. This other theory, we would call it Konda, if you ever heard of that. But he's a Serbian, and it just so happens to be there was a gal from Serbia, and she doesn't know anything about flying or anything like that. But I said something about the Konda effect, and she goes, "It's Kwanda." And then she tells me he's a Serb. He was a fluid dynamics guy, you know. But anyways, he comes up. Bernoulli's theorem says something like this. When you set a fluid in motion, pressure 90 degrees perpendicular to travel decrease proportionally with the increase or decrease of the fluid velocity. So in other words, you get a fluid going, the side pressure drops, right? That's basically what it says. The Konda or Kwanda effect, he calls it, says this: fluids tend to attach themselves to stationary objects. There's a fine line there, but I kind of subscribe to that. Fluids, and you can look it up. I'm going to give you a little paper to read before you leave. I don't have it here to read, but you can click on it and read it at home. It's a great article. But if you look into it as deep as I have over the years, you'll find out the experts, nobody really knows what makes an airplane fly. Captain Riggs, sir. Everything's under control. Nobody really knows what makes an airplane fly. Or something to the effect of, if you know how something works, you can measure it mathematically to come up with an answer, you know. That's what mathematicians, well, they can't all agree on what makes an airplane fly mathematically, so whatever. And there was a fella, I'm pretty much winging this too, I'm totally unprepared for this, but there's this guy by the name of Jeff Raskin. Anybody ever hear of him? He developed a device called the Apple computer. Of course, you don't know about him. You know about the big guys, right? The guys that get the spotlight. What's his name? Jobs now. But Jeff Raskins was a big instrumental in the development of the Apple computer. He worked with Jobs and Wozniak, and he was like a director of concept or something like that, my understanding. But he was also very much into, gosh darn it. That's how you spell his names. Everybody see that? He talks about the Kwanda effect. That paper right there is a must-read for anybody who thinks they know about aerodynamics. And you're not going to read it now, but just remember the guy's name, Jeff Raskins, Aerodynamics. Type it in on a Google search and it'll come up. Read this paper. I read it a long time ago. This guy, Jeff Raskins, he was a model airplane guy. I've been flying model airplanes since I was a little kid. I can't tell you how they have made learning to fly a real airplane so much easier. The simple principle, we're going to talk about aerodynamic or angle of attack. Anybody who flies model airplanes, you know, and understands how to learn angle of attack right from the get-go. You know, you design airplanes and fly them, all that stuff. Angle of attack is a paramount to it. But Raskins was a model airplane guy, and he wrote this paper And this paper has something to do with the Honda effect. Like I said, I'm not going to read it, but I'll kind of give you the general idea. We got Bernoulli's theorem, right? So if you apply that theory to how a ball will turn in flight, you know, a curveball, right? One side of the ball is traveling faster because it's spinning in a certain direction. So one side of the ball has a lower pressure than the other side has a higher pressure. So it should make the ball turn towards lower pressure, so forth, yada, yada. Raskins goes through each one of the theories on making a ball spin, talking to the experts that wrote the book on how to make this, I think it was a soccer ball. And it defeats all of the Bernoulli's theorems and everything we know about, and understand about, or where we're taught about how an airplane flies aerodynamically. The wing design. Albert Einstein actually designed a wing airfoil. And if you think about it, you're seeing that, right? If you think about it, the says, now I made it bigger so now I can't find it, right? I think that was, Albert Einstein's airfoil. It had no aerodynamic virtues, but he took Bernoulli's theorem and the accepted practice at the time and came up with this idea for an airfoil. Of course, it doesn't work as well as just a regular airfoil. Raskins says this: if the curved surface of the top of the wing accelerates the fluid, it causes Bernoulli's theorem. Why not put a lot of curves on the top of it? Right? Well, that doesn't work either. And so anyways, it's a really good article and you should read it. It's a brilliant article and it in practical terms that you can understand kind of disregards Bernoulli's theorem and he leans towards quanta, or the quanta effect as well. Jeff Raskin's Aerodynamics. Now, if you want to see a guy who really understands aerodynamics, I'm not real good at running computers, as you can tell. I want YouTube, right? Is it working? Let me think here. Indoor record and LAUNCH STN. Here's what a guy who really, really knows aerodynamics and how airplanes fly. Hand launch record, successful record attempt, and he breaks the record in this launch. Indoor is different than outdoor because there's no thermal activity, so you're getting real feedback here. You know, he's got the airplane set up to fly perfect, and he can throw it just perfect. And so I forget, he goes over a minute. I think it was a little less than a minute was the record for so many years. And Stan did that. You guys want to watch it come all the way down? It takes a while. Anyway, he's got the, how many, what controls is he using right now? None. Any controls. That airplane's flying perfect without any control input, but a solid understanding of what angle of attack is, what trim drag is, what center of gravity is, what trim speed is. He knows all this stuff. comes in for a landing. Look at that. I mean, that thing just floating around perfectly. No controls whatsoever, yet completely under control.
That's a little higher.
Perfect. I think that was actually the second real breakfast that he did. So I wanted to put that in there because he didn't touch any steering wheel. He didn't have any radio control, nothing. He just understands.
GPS.
Yeah, he didn't have any of that. He just understands what we're about to embark on discussing. So enough of the videos for now. I had a couple of us lined up, and maybe it'll pop into my head to use them. But we're going to talk about angle of attack, right? So, what is angle of attack? Anyone? Bueller? Bueller?
The angle between the chord line of the wing and the relative wing.
Okay, so Hank says the angle between the chord. What is a chord line? What is that?
Line right.
That's wrong. That's a mean chord line.
Leading
Well, what's a
into the
chord?
edge.
Chord's about the back of a pickup truck full of wood, right?
45 down. 8 by 8 by
Yeah.
8.
How do you spell
Or the
a cord of wood?
oh, that's C-O-R-D.
That's C-O-R-D, right?
Right.
Yeah. So what is a chord when it comes to airplanes?
Don't answer or he'll humiliate you.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Leading edge of the
I
trail.
think the chord refers to like pulling a string.
Yeah.
It's a line through the.
You missed Monty Python. I did that. If I had an eraser, I'd throw it at him. Chord is a aerodynamic measurement, okay? And everybody knows that this is the chord of the wing, right? From the front, well, everybody doesn't know that. But from the front of the wing to the back of the wing is the chord, right? But there's even more to that. And unfortunately, we don't have a lot of really good demonstration tools. However, if I was to take this rudder off here and break it off and hold it there, it would have a chord. Right? The aileron has a chord. The chord of the aileron goes from the back of the aileron to the front of the aileron. It's not just a wing term. So when you're talking about a flying surface on an airplane, chord is from the front to the back, only we don't call it the front to the back. What do we call it?
Leading edge and trailing edge.
Watch this. Okay? I've been doing this my whole life. Ready? Huh?
You.
Huh?
You.
What is
It's
Start off with a
it?
circle.
No, this is a 6-gauge well. It's a little different. This is the front of the wing or the aileron or the propeller or whatever, right? Only you don't call it that. You call it the leading edge. I can't spell either. I can't add, subtract, multiply, divide, or spell. So if this is the leading edge, you guys think this? The back edge, right? The trailing edge. So you got to know your nomenclature to be able to discuss your aerodynamics. You know? And leading edge is the leading edge of any part of the airplane. Okay, the individual part or some of the parts too. You know, but it's leading edge, trailing edge, and this distance from here we already talked about is the chord, right? So what is this distance right here? Bueller? What is it?
Camber.
Camber. Now, that's right, and that's C-A-M-B-E-R, right? For folks that want to know. So you got the leading edge, you got the trailing edge, you got the chord, the chord, and the camber. The camber is so much here, the camber is so much here, okay? The chord can change along the span of a tapered wing, right? If you could break this aileron off, you would have a leading edge, a trailing edge, you would have a chord, and it would have a camber. That's the last one we got to talk about here. Span. This is the span, right? So the wing has a span, the aileron has a span. Those are your basic elements of airplane parts. You know, the basic nomenclature for it. So we talked about chord line. We're talking about angle of attack. Right? And Hank here, professor, says that the chord or the angle of attack is a difference measured in degrees between the chord line and the relative wind, right? So let's talk about relative wind because it's real easy to talk about. How much wind is up there when you're flying an airplane? There could be a no wind day, right? But in the airplane, there's a lot of wind going by, right?
Better be.
There's no wind blowing, but relatively speaking, there's wind outside the airplane, right? So that's what they call the relative wind. Another word for that would be speed, okay? But what is the relative wind? If you were in a bar and some guy said, hey, I want to get my pilot's license. Well, I heard you something about called relative wind. What is that? What would you say the relative wind is? What would you tell them?
The wind going over the wing.
Put your hand out the window.
Anybody else?
Put your hand
What that doesn't address the
direction.
direction.
Right.
It's always the same.
Not necessarily.
Anyone else? Bueller?
Put your hand out the window.
Where'd you learn that? You don't count. See, I like that. I like that answer best. Relative wind, what I've come to describe to make it easy for people to understand is the wind that you feel when you stick your hand out the window. Okay? And I like to use a car as an example. If you're driving a car and you stick, and I said stick your hand out the window with the palm out like that, right? Where's the relative wind? It's right there. Come on, guys. It's right there. You're driving down the road, you stick your hand out the window, right? Where's the relative wind? It's right, hitting your palm of your hand, right? Always, right? No?
So you turn your hand. So you turn your
Well, you're not turning your hand. This is going to be a tough crowd right here. You know what a perandal is? A perandal? Nobody knows what that is? It's off of Green Acres. It was when his wife was learning how to drive, Oliver's wife, and she said, I just turned the perandal. Park, reverse, neutral. But it's a really good little skit. And she finally, I drive R for race. But what if you put the you put your hand, you're driving when you're sitting there, and you put the perandal into R. The relative wind ain't on the front of your hand no more, is it? How come that is? These questions are pretty simple. Okay, they're pretty simple. I mean, that's right. You're going backwards, right? What in a car? Where can you make the relative wind hit your hand? If there's no exterior wind, windless on a windless day. In a car, you can only make the wind hit your face of your hand and the back of your hand. Look, you can't do a roll in a car, can you? Okay, and what about an airplane? If you stick your hand out the window of an airplane, right, you're feeling the what? Relative wind, right? And it's always on your palm, right? Not. Now, depending on what you're into, that wind can come to any point on your hand from any direction. And you've seen the guys do the gyroscopic maneuvers and all that stuff. Where's the relative wind there?
Slightly variable, I would think.
Right. Tail slide is like putting it in reverse. You go straight up and you shut the engine off. Hang on to the stick because it's going to try to snatch out of your hand. But you can slide backwards a long ways. And if you had your hand out the window, the relative wind would be on your back of your hand. So that's why I say the relative wind is the wind you feel on your hand if you stick it out the window of the airplane. Let's take this a little further. Is it always on the palm of your hand? Well, most of the time it is. A lot of your flying, it is, right? But sometimes it's not. And that is a major, major player in the discussion of angle of attack. One that very few pilots are cognizant of, but that relative wind is not always equal and opposite your direction of flight. There's air pockets out there. Everybody knows what an air pocket is, right? You guys know what air pocket is? Air pocket is an area. You don't know what an air pocket is. I've never described one. An air pocket is an area that the atmosphere, the sun's been beating down on, and it heats it up. And the oxygen starves out of it. The oxygen evaporates, and then when the airplane hits it, it drops. Never mind. The relative wind can change, okay, from thermal activity and stuff like that. It's not a constant, and it can cause you some problems if you're close to critical angle of attack. So everybody got that? The relative wind changes, even though you're flying straight and level. It can change. What would cause it to change?
Air current.
Thermal, air currents,
Air pockets, I call
air pockets,
them. Jeez.
wind shear.
Yeah, same thing. Turbulence, right? Some kind of turbulence can cause it to change. So have we got the relative wind? Don't everybody jump up one time. Okay.
I got a question. Would it be the same over any part of the airplane, or just over like the wing versus like the prop wash?
That's an outstanding question. And one of the things that I had pulled up on the computer, which now I will have to search out here again, is, oh gosh, AIRFOIL. What do you call that? Wind tunnel, right? This one. This is an old video, but it's an outstanding video. So I didn't want that to go. Now, what was your question? Your question said, does it stay the same? Tell it here, it's a little bit easier to visualize with this. Here we go. Those streamlines, those are called streamlines. They put that smoke in air. And even though this streamline is not touching the wing, it takes the shape of it. See how those streamlines are changing too? There is a difference in relative wind for those streamlines. Yeah. And the idea is the closer you get to the surface that the relative wind comes in contact to, the air begins to decelerate and decelerate and decelerate until theoretically, right at the skin, the air velocity is zero. The last little bit of it is called the boundary layer. And it has a lot to do with aerodynamics, so we're not going to talk about tonight because that's in too deep. But you can see how the air around it has a different velocity. Think about this, because all this stuff is nothing more than physics. Somehow I wanted to tie in the court of making aerodynamic mistakes. You know, you can take a topic like prayer in school or torture or something like that, and the courts that decide whether or not it's legal or illegal change the laws to fit whatever you want to talk about, you know, changes, right? The court of law for whether or not you fly right is called physics, and it doesn't discriminate at all, and it never changes. And so all this stuff is physical stuff, and it's all pretty easy to comprehend if you think about it. And this question about the velocity of the relative wind. Now, have we got any pilots in here?
Used to be.
We do, right? There's a couple people. Ludlow, you've flown before, haven't you?
Not well.
Okay. Is there anything else on the airplane that might influence the relative wind?
The propeller.
Yeah, that's right. The propeller turning, okay, throws out a disc, a divergent disc of air, right? Expanding disc of air. And that produces what they call induced velocity. If the airplane's just sitting there and you give it full throttle, you hold the brakes, That's a high degree of induced velocity. And on the Pete Paul, even with the pitot tube, which is a sensor that measures airspeed, halfway out on the wing, if you sit there and you give it gas, you'll see the airspeed come up again. It's got a real low airspeed indicator. I think it starts out at 20. The airspeed will indicate just sitting there because you're inducing this velocity of air around the center. That is extremely important to understand if you want to try to keep from busting your butt in an airplane or fly one. That prop blast keeps the air attached to the airplane. So the answer is yes. Relative wind, I mean, we could talk about it for even longer. Most people think, oh, relative wind, and then the way they go with it, right? But if you understand it and think about how it interacts with everything else, you'll really, I say there's no such thing as a natural born pilot. There isn't. And of course I say that, who am I? Nobody, right? But Bob Hoover says it, and what's his name? Chuck Yeager. So since they're celebrities, we're a celebrity-driven society, we'll take their word for it. But there's no such thing as a natural pilot. It's only somebody who engages in the understanding and the practice of the activity that becomes good at it or proficient at it or whatever you want to call it. So understanding this aerodynamic stuff is good to know. So relative wind, any questions on that? It can change into external and internal things, conditions can make change. You can control some of them, you can't control some of them. But it's not as simple as the relative wind is always in the opposite direction of the airplane, because it's not. We talked.
No, you never really finished the definition of the chord line. You hit the chord, but not the chord.
I'm headed right. That's exactly what I'm going to do. This is a mistake. If you go halfway between the cambers on it, this chord line would look like this, right? That's called the mean M-E-A-N, average chord line. That's halfway between two. That only has to do with for aerodynamic guys, designers and stuff like that. What we as pilots need to know about is the chord line. The chord line goes from the vertex. Now, Hank, you know all this stuff. Vertex is the first thing that goes ahead of anything, right? It's the beginning of something, the leading edge of something.
Okay.
So the trailing edge is a vertex as well, because it's the last thing, right? Or what's the opposite of vertex? I think both of them are vertex. You engineers should know this stuff. I don't, but you go to the vertex of the leading edge. Layperson's term would be the very furthest point forward on the leading edge. So let's say it's right there, right? And then you go to the very vertex of the trailing edge, which is a point right there, right? And then you connect them, and I'm going to do the best I can. That there is your chord line, if that was a straight line. That's how you get the chord line. Okay? And the chord line never changes. It stays fixed in the airplane, right?
Let the wing bend.
You have to bend the wing? See, you should be saying no, Bill. You're absolutely wrong, but nobody flaps the gun. You change the chord line of the wing every time you fly. You change the chord line of the airplane. How do we do that? Good thing I'm holding this class. Huh? Homer Mark says flaps. So this is my drawing of a flap, right? What's this? Right? That's aileron. One goes up on one wing and one goes down on the other wing. Okay? So if you draw from the very vertex to the very vertex, right? See the difference between the chord line with the, what do we call it when the aileron is straight back or the flaps are straight back? It's another aeronautical term.
Trailing?
It's called trail, in trail. New students always say, well, how do you know where to put the steering wheel? And you say to them, well, it blows or it goes, it blows into the entrail position. Entrail. You go to the steering wheel in air, right, which you should be doing most of the time anyway. The flippers don't drop down, do they? Do they?
Not if it's good, right?
I've never been in an airplane that does. They blow with the wind. And that position is called in trail. In trail. Aileron is in trail. Flap is in trail. The rudder is in trail. So this is aileron here, right? Now, I don't know. How many degrees is that? Anybody? Bueller? Between the chord line and that line, I don't know. We'll say 10 degrees, make it easy. 10 degrees down here. This is just a number. 10's easier for me. So you vary the chord line every time you displace an aileron. Okay? What about a rudder? Yeah. Elevator.
Yep.
Controllable pitch prop.
Sure, probably have a chord line too.
Yeah, but you don't change it.
Controllable pitch prop would.
Nope.
No?
Nope.
Oh, no, you're right.
Chord line stays the same. Little thing here.
It doesn't change.
Right. Chord line remains the same. That's
The angle
right.
of
So
attack.
see, we're thinking a little bit here, right? It changes the pitch, right? Everybody knows that. That's wrong too.
Changes the angle of attack.
What do you call it? Constant speed prop or variable pitch prop doesn't change the pitch at all. Well, wait a minute, Bill. It says pitch control. Well, that's right. It says, but it doesn't change the pitch. It changes the blade angle. And there's a big difference between blade angle and blade pitch. That's another thing you can look at on the internet. But there's like an 1800 design of guys who came up with a way to do a variable pitch propeller. And it's too deep to go into, but it's a pretty cool contraption considering the guy did it in the late 1800s. But I digress. We're talking about propellers, but not really, because it's all about angle of attack. We discussed the wing, right? The leading edge, trailing edge, cambered, all that stuff. And each one of these, you change any one of these dimensions, and you change the characteristic of the lifting characteristic of the airplane, or airfoil. We're not going to go into that either, except to say that if you increase the span, the aspect ratio, if you know what that is, that's the span to chord ratio. How many chords can you put in a span? Anybody give me an idea, an example of a high aspect ratio airplane? That's right. Very many chords will go into the length. It's a high aspect ratio. Anyone give me an example of a low aspect ratio?
F-104.
F-104 is Starfighter.
Yeah.
Lockheed, Kelly Johnson design, part of the Century Series. No, I'd say that's medium. Maybe low, but no, it's simple. Yeah, the Bumblebee. That is. That guy's nuts for flying that thing. That guy's nuts. But Concorde.
Okay.
That's ultra low aspect. You ever notice when a glider comes in what they look like, or a B-52? Looking for a landing.
Yeah, I like that.
You ever notice what Concorde looks like when it comes in? Right. And that's characteristic of a low aspect ratio wing. The lower the aspect ratio, the higher, they call it higher alpha, higher angle of attack for critical angle attacks, which we haven't discussed yet. I just wanted to point out these different variables have effects on the characteristics of the airplane. Increasing the span increases the oh shit, excuse me, I'm not supposed to swear, this is being recorded, right? The efficiency, they call it the efficiency. You have very little power to keep the thing in the air, but there's trade-offs of that too. So I don't want to get into all that stuff, but they're aware of the fact that changes in the different dimensions of the airfoil will have some kind of profound effect on the whole operation. So we have an airfoil here, and we see it's actually not an airfoil, it's a cross-section of an airfoil. Almost all the terminology in airplanes is French, because really the French are the ones that developed the airplane. The Wright brothers, who's their father, was a minister or a preacher at church, and you can see his church in Monclova. You can actually rent it. I forget his name, but he's a reverend. with Reverend Milton Wright.
Milton Wright.
Yeah. And he had a church over in Monclova. That's, if you go into that church, it's his church, and it says they brought it over there to in Maumee. What's that? Wolcott Museum. They brought it over. They reassembled it. But anyway, they invented the airplane, and they kept all their cards real close to their chest. And they had all these patents, and nobody could. If you look at the development of the airplane, there was none after the Wright brothers started. It wasn't until after World War I you started to see improvements in airplanes. Here, actually, people build airplanes. But the patents didn't apply over there. So the French were the ones that developed the airplane and most of the stuff that's in an airplane. So a lot of your terminology like empennage, aileron, nacelle, pitot, French. So why did I tell you that? I forget why I told you that, but that's kind of a fact. So you have, oh, I was going to tell you the cross-section of an airfoil. You know what a foil is? Fencing by Dombrowski. You know that joke. But anyways, you know, that's the foil. Because the foil's right cuts through the air, and this is a cross section of the airfoil, and that's what you're looking at there. Cross section of the airfoil, commonly referred to as an airfoil. So you got your chord line and you got your variables there, right? Now let's draw. What element don't I have drawn in this picture?
You don't have the relative wind yet.
Correct. No. So wind. RW, right? And it's all over the place. Okay. Now see this line right here? That's with no flaps or anything deployed. It's getting a little busy on this. There's the angle right there, right? See it? Right there? Right? Got that? Now here's with the aileron deflected. See the difference right here? Not drawing in a good spot. And here's with the aileron reflexed, pointed up, reflexed. The angle's different. The chord line, right? Where there's nothing deflected. Everybody sees that, right? Okay.
It was well behind, Billy. If you can actually use those lines, maybe.
Where's the chord line? It doesn't show the chord line. And it doesn't show the aileron. People never thought that the aileron changes the angle of attack. It does change the angle of attack. But you got to see that when you stick the aileron up, it changes the angle of the chord line. You see that, right?
Looks like it decreases the angle.
But it changes it, right? There it is with no ailerons or flaps deflected. Here it is with the flap going down, and here it is with the flap going up or the aileron going up. There's a difference. You change the chord line. Because when you get to the part now of what angle of attack is, and you can see this relative wind going in here, the difference, I'll tell you what, I'm just going to be rid of this crap stuff, excuse me. The difference, here's the chord line, the original chord line, right? And here's the relative wind coming in here like this, right? Where's the relative wind? It's all around, right? You see this difference right here? Right?
That was another effect at that point. That little thing.
The difference between the chord line and the relative wind is angle of attack. Measured in centimeters, right? It's measured in degrees. Increasing degrees are positive angle of attack, negative angle of attack. Increasing angle of attack, decreasing angle of attack. So how can we, so let's come up with a number right here. This is 20 degrees, we'll say, right? We're flying along, it's 20 degrees, positive angle of attack. How can we change the angle of attack along some portion of the wing? You just place an aileron. It makes the aileron come down, and that portion of the wing that the aileron occupies changes the angle of attack. And in the case of an aileron going down, it increases the angle, and in the case of an aileron going up, it decreases the angle. Now, when you increase the angle of attack for a given speed, doesn't matter what speed, when you increase it, you get a coefficient increase in the lift. You increase the lift when you increase the angle of attack. You increase the lift when you increase the angle of attack. So how much lift do you think you have at zero angle of attack?
None.
You would think that, wouldn't you? But you'd be wrong.
Just stuff that gets applied.
No,
Incidents?
you actually have quite a bit of lift, depending on the airfoil. But if you have a zero angle of attack, that Bernoulli's theorem, that cone, Flandre effect, all that stuff, is going to take effect and it's going to give you some lift. So you actually have to go, for most airfoils, between 2 and 3 degrees negative to get zero lift. And you're going to see that on a chart here in a minute. Well, go ahead.
Is it correct to say then, when you use aileron, that the angle of attack decreases and increases by equal amount on the opposite way?
Bingo. And that's so important to know that. Because that's how guys crash and kill themselves. Because they don't know that. And we're going to get into that. And there's been some airliner crashes where they've done that. If you fly glider, you really see it being pronounced. Unfortunately, we won't be able to get into all that stuff. But if you want to have another session next week, we can finish up with the other stuff. What I want to cover tonight is angle of attack and stability. But that's right. That's excellent.
Bill, just for the meeting for a second. Where's your click off this thing? It's very annoying to try and watch you with stripes on your face all day for all of us.
I don't want to lose this. I had this all set up and then sat there and kicked it all off. So now I got to go through and find.
Oh, well, stand at one side. You from out here, you don't notice it as badly, but
Yeah.
that's fine.
Oh.
Like I said, in front of you.
Oh, that's all you wanted to tell me?
That's all.
Oh, okay.
Can we turn off that thing, lights?
That's fine with me. I don't need you. Well, try them, Lauren. Kick them lights off.
I got a question.
Go ahead.
Is that the way this wing is set up with the airflow? Is that what happens with ground effect?
Let's leave.
There's no video. What happens with ground effect?
Ground
You
effect.
lose the lift?
Ground effect, just briefly, is when you get close to the ground, it creates a cushion in there.
That's the way.
See,
Okay, I was looking at the way the curves are, thinking that it was
Yeah.
accelerating off the trail.
if there was ground right here, those streamlines would be very close together. They'd be compressed together. There's surface effect vehicles that Russians have actually developed quite a bit to run these jet boats or airplanes, wherever you come across the jet, take advantage of that. But so now the difference measured in degrees between the chord line and the relative wind is the angle of attack, correct? When you increase the angle of attack, you get a proportional amount of lift for the increase. So we'll put it this way: 1 degree of increase in angle of attack gives 1 unit of lift. 2 units of increase in angle of attack gives 2 units of lift. Okay, now help me here, class. 3 units of angle of attack increase. 6? No, 2.3. Yeah, very good. You're an accountant, aren't you? You do this for a living. Well, this is great.
That varies as well.
It does?
I would think so, up to the critical angle of attack, maybe.
Well, we're not there yet, Lauren. Because this is the next part. I said, well, this is great. Let's just increase it to 90 degrees. We'll get 90 units of lift, right? No? That's right. So, that's right. It's too bad. And this is probably very politically incorrect to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Speed plus, this is a recipe, angle of attack gives us what?
Velocity.
Lift. That's the recipe for lift. That's what I've always called it. Speed and angle of attack. Now we talked about speed and we talked about angle of attack. I don't know that y'all got the angle of attack part down, but if you think about it later on and go on the internet, you can figure it out. Speed plus angle of attack equals lift, right? And this is the politically incorrect part. I'm sure I'm going to offend somebody. Lift has a red-headed stepchild.
Talking
What
about
would that
induced
be?
drag.
Whenever lift comes in the room, he's going to have his obnoxious friend with him, you know? And the more you have, the more drag you have. Unfortunately, that's just the way it goes. Probably a good thing because you'd be able to lift anything if it weren't for drag. So whenever you increase lift, you increase drag, right? Whenever you increase the angle, and this lift associated with, drag associated with lift is called induced drag. There's other kinds of drag, but whenever you create lift, you create drag, that's induced drag. Whenever you create lift, you get drag with it. Okay? So Lauren says a word I didn't know what the heck he's talking about, critical attack. Let's think about this. So if we increase angle attack by 1, we get 1 unit of lift. Then we increase by 2, get 2 units of lift. Let's just keep going, right? Well, it doesn't work that way. There's a trade-off. And that's what's going over here. I want to save this. I want to go like this. What am I talking about now? Oh, I know. It's called, anybody know what a lift slope curve is? I got one that I like the best, the most goodest. It's on here someplace, I'm sure. Ah, it's right there. That's fine, right? I like it so much, I framed it. You can see here that this is a pretty simple graph, something I wasn't very good at reading in high school. Coefficient. Does anybody know what a coefficient is? Mathematics.
It's a multiplier, fraction, or a factor.
It's a dimensionless measurement.
Anybody else? You know what it is
That's
now?
I start thinking about that and I think, whoa, dude, a dimensionless measurement. Wow. But you know,
Relationship.
yeah, on a 1 out of 10 scale, you know, that's an example of it. You know, on a 1 out of 10 scale, do you think that's the best airplane or the best car? It's a dimensionless measurement. So that's what they use to give you lift, right? And then down here is degrees of angle of attack, okay? If you see right down here in the corner, you got your 0 right there, and you got your 0 right there. But you're still putting out some lift, right? At 0, you've got that much lift, right? That's your 0 angle of attack. Remember I said you have to go left, you got to go negative. And to get 0 lift, it says -5. So you actually have to have the, every airfoil has its lift
Cambered airfoil.
Yeah, lift slope curve. You know, that's what they do. They put them in a wind tunnel. They analyze all that stuff. But I happen to know that this is a Clark White airfoil, which is a fairly common Piper Cub foil. It's one of the more popular airfoils from World War II. Considered nowadays to be a high lift airfoil, low stall, low speed airplane. But anyway, you increase the angle of attack to 5, and look at, you got that much lift, right? You go to 10 and you got that much lift, right? See, it's a straight line progression until we get to right here. I guess you would say right here. What's the difference between right here and right here when it comes to angles? Yeah.
Looks like about
18. About 1 or 2 degrees.
yeah, 1 or 2 degrees.
Not much. So what's this line right here?
Drag.
Right.
Reduced
The red-headed stepchild. So what happens here? We increase the angle until it's right around 18 degrees on this, and I'll tell you, pretty much any airfoil that we're going to fly, pretty much any airfoil that you're going to fly from a manufactured Part 23 airplane, not an experimental, is going to stall at about an 18-degree angle of attack. Well, of course, we don't know what a stall is yet, but what happens here, if we increase to 18, how much lift have we got? 1.5, right? Keep increasing the attack, okay, to 25 degrees. We lost all our lift, right?
Not at all.
How much have we lost?
0.25.
You hardly lost any lift. Look at it. Yeah. You increased it 5 degrees and it only dropped that much. Now, I'm getting ahead of myself in this discussion, but this is the critical angle of attack. And the critical angle of attack is the point where you start, when you go past that deeper into angle of attack, separation occurs. Okay, so remind me where I am right now. We're going to talk about separation. So I want to get right back to where I was. You got this airfoil, right? Anybody, let's see, everybody's driven a car, right? If you're going fast in a car, and I want you to turn this corner, if you're going 20 miles an hour, you're going to be able to keep the car right on that corner? Yep. Miles an hour, yep. 50 miles an hour, yep. What about 60 miles an hour? You start to let go. What about 70 miles an hour? Start to let go more, right? At some point, your wheels are going to let go, and you're going to spin off the turn, correct? Well, if you look at that first picture I had where I can go right back to it. With the air streams, oh, look at there. See the angle? The angle is too fast, or too sharp for the air to go around. Separation occurs. What is this region right here? Air. One thing it is for sure, it's turbulent. It's random. It's chaotic. Now, we got boaters in here, don't we? A guy or gal that operates a boat should learn somewhere along the line, the bigger the weight you throw out, the more drag you have. Same thing with airplanes. This baby's putting out a big wake right there. That separation occurred. The molecules couldn't take the corner because the angle of attack was too high. What do we call that? Critical angle of attack. Separation occurs. And what happens when separation occurs?
You lose lift and get drag.
Drag goes right out the lift, right out the roof. Mm-hmm. Now, Hank said something that I disagree with. You lose lift? I don't think so.
Or you lose some lift.
Right. Very little lift is how I would describe it. And therein lies one of the big problems that I see with people misunderstanding aerodynamics. I don't know, when I teach somebody how to stall an airplane, we get in the stall. And once we're in the stall and stable in it, I make them go deeper into it. And then when we're in it real deep, I make them go even deeper into it. Then I make them turn. Okay? Then I turn back, right? I show them how to turn. Then I have them come out a little bit until they come out of it. And then I tell them to get the power and go up. And the reason for that is everybody has and I make a general statement, everybody has a misunderstanding what a stall is. A stall, we go back to this other one, is merely where separation occurs. Okay? Separation is starting to occur right here. That turbulence out there, okay? And it's creating a big wake. That wake's creating drag. And look at how that puller goes. It's almost vertical. And in the little airplanes that we fly with these puny little motors, and puny little motor is something less than 600 horsepower, okay? You can't overcome the drag. So what happens is, in a stall, you lose a very little bit of your lift, but you increase your drag significantly. And so the airplane is not going to climb, even with full power, although it could. And there's more stuff that goes in there. But for all practical purposes, what happens in a stall is drag becomes greater than lift. And you start drifting down. You don't fall. Now, I think I said 18 degrees is critical angle of attack. Where separation begins to occur is attack, okay? Separation occurs, drag rises. You go further into it, drag really rises, and what was I going to say? But you still have a ton of lift, enough to fly the airplane, and you're stalled. So everybody has this big fear of stalling. And you notice Stan, who threw the airplane up? He's not afraid of stalling. He knows what a stall is. And there ain't no way that airplane's going to stall because he's got it trimmed out right. All your airplanes that you would fly are stable enough that if it stalls, it's because you don't know what you're doing. If it stalls inadvertently, you don't know what you're doing, and you put it in a stall. It don't stall by itself. You put it in a stall because you don't understand what a stall is. You got to understand that your ailerons change the angle of attack of the wing over the point which the aileron or the flaps occupy. You got to understand that you don't lose all your freaking lift when you go into a stall, even if you go deeper into a stall. What you're doing is you get the puller for the drag to go way up. A properly designed airplane should be, any airplane that you buy from Wichita, any airplane that's certified airplane, should have good stalling characteristics. If we all looked at this, what's it? What's a Corvallis? Is that what they call that other?
Viper.
Let's look at a Cirrus. Cirrus. Designed by the, what are their names? The brothers. Come on, what's their names? Anyway, a couple rich guys got into building airplanes. They came up with this airplane. Notice they don't show it there, do they? What's that right there? See that start right there? Right there? If you look at the original Cirruses, that wasn't on there. See what that is?
Stalling.
Nope. It has to do with stalling. It has to do with poor handling characteristics. Nope.
Yeah, I can't see it.
I'm trying to get a better picture. Images.
Slot? Is it a slot?
Nope. It's called a cuff.
Okay.
We don't see a really good. Well, there's a halfway.
It's like a winglet
No,
in the middle. Of
not a real good picture there. I don't want to spend a lot of time digging around trying to find one. There, that picture right there. It contrasts. See that right there? Yeah.
Oh, the wing changes.
No, that was stuck onto the wing. Most home builders, and that's what these guys are. Nobody knows what their name is. They're real famous. Oh, come on. I can't think of their name. Anyway, Clapmeyer, that's it. Dale Clapmeyer and his brother. Anyway, they're home builders, right? And home builders do, in my opinion, every time, and it screws up the handling character. They sacrifice handling characteristics for speed. Everybody thinks going fast is really good. And the Cirrus boys and the Corvallis, which is a Martin or it's a Lance Neubauer design, and all those airplanes had to be redone because of their poor handling characteristics. And what this is right here is a Band-Aid to make the stalling characteristics of this wing more benign. How come they didn't put it in the root?
You want the root to stall?
Make that stall first.
Why? Why not have tip stalls?
You got an aileron?
That's right. You got the ailerons out there. They want to keep that wing, that flow attached, because that's what where your control is. Okay. So, so I was saying, most of the airplanes that you'll fly, although you're starting to get into these airplanes now, they don't have as good a handling characteristics as the older airplanes. airplanes do. So they may be a little bit less stable, and you should understand your aerodynamics better. The Cirrus has a horrendous accident rate, although it's getting better in the past couple of years. A lot of crash, a lot of flying into the ground type of thing. Probably because it doesn't handle that well. That cuff is an attempt to make it handle better. Now, 18 degrees, right? What's here? Are we stalled here? Yeah. Yeah, you're stalled right there. What's the difference between and right here in number of degrees? So now maybe you can't see it. Two degrees. How much is 2 degrees? Much. Yeah. You should be able to hold your heading and your attitude within 2 degrees, but not many of us can. So it's almost imperceptible, right? Here, you're not stalled. 2 degrees later, you are stalled, right? If you want to unstall, how much you have to retain the angle of attack? No, I didn't say lower the nose, because that's another mistake.
2 degrees.
Yeah, not much. It's like if it's designed properly, it's like a switch. You're stalled, you're unstalled. You're stalled, you're unstalled.
Stall all across its entire span simultaneously, does it?
Right. And I don't want to get into that. I'd do that in another class, but this one is, I just want to stick with the basic angle of attack and stall. So everybody's with me so far? Okay. How much do you have to increase the angle of attack to go from an unstalled condition to a stalled condition?
A couple of degrees.
1 degree, usually. And we can't hold our nose 1 degree, can we? For argument's sake, you might say it's 3 degrees. We can't hold our nose 3 degrees anyway. Okay? So how much do you have to reduce the angle of attack to reattach the airflow? To get rid of the separation? Something that hardly any of us can perceive anyway. Hardly anything. You have to lower your nose a little bit. Or I did not say that. You have to reduce your angle of attack a little bit. Okay? Because the difference between being stalled and unstalled is only 1 degree. Why am I making sure everybody's on the same page on this?
To lose the fear of stalls, I think.
Nope. No, you're going to be afraid of stalls because you are. I mean, but to maybe understand them a little bit better, let's continue this drawing, right? We're at critical angle of attack, which is 18 degrees, okay? All right? 18 degrees. How far do we have to go past 18 degrees to stall the airplane? I just said it 3 times, 4 times.
1 degree.
1 degree. Now, go back to the first thing I drew up here when we came in tonight. Can you change the chord line of the wing?
Yes.
How do you do that? Okay, now visualize this. You're flying along in flight. I had an instructor to always say that. How would you not be flying along in flight? You always say, okay, you're flying along in flight, and all of a sudden, so you're flying along in flight, and you're at 1 degree above critical angle of attack. Are you stalled?
1
Degree above critical angle?
Yeah, you're on the safe side. You're less than 1 degree. You're 1 degree shy of stalling, right?
Right.
Okay. And you hit an air pocket. Didn't I say something about how the relative wind is a variable? Suppose you hit an air pocket the wind is not hitting you like this now because there's a thermal and it changes it more like this. You had the same attitude, right? The attitude is the airplane reference to the horizon. Change. It's your freaking relative wind change, doesn't it? And it does that. And when you're close to critical, you'll go critical, maybe only temporarily. Okay? So, suppose you hit an air pocket on the left wing and stay with me on this, remind me because I'll forget. It's the left wing, okay? An air pocket on the wing, but not the right wing. The left wing, what's the angle of attack at it now? Just give me a number, I don't care what it is.
25.
20. The left wing is at 20, is it stall?
Yes.
The right wing didn't hit an air pocket. Okay? What's the, is it stall?
No.
Okay. Now, whenever you create lift, you create drag, and whenever you stall an airplane, you really create drag. Which wing is stalled?
Y'all.
Which wing is stalled? The left one.
Left one.
So which wing has more drag?
Left one.
So does the left wing slow down or does the right wing speed up?
Probably both.
Because you can't have one without the other, right? So I always say that.
Rotate around the center of gravity.
Yeah, this one slows down, that one's going to speed up. Okay? The right wing is far less critical than the left wing. The right wing has less drag than the left wing. What's the left wing going to do? Go up?
Drop
Thank
down.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you. We're engaged now, right? It's going to go down. What's the angle of attack of the left wing because of the air pocket?
20 degrees.
Critical. That went 20. And left wing drops, so what are you going to do with the steering wheel? You're right. So what is the left wing aileron going to do?
Increase. Go down.
Just go up or just go down? Everybody's got to understand this, right?
Down,
Go to the right,
Think
go
about
down.
it. The left wing drops, so you go
Down.
like this.
down reduces the angle of attack.
Increases.
Lauren, you go wait in the car, buddy. The left wing goes down. Anybody see where this is going?
You're increasing the angle of attack even more.
You're making it what I call more worser. That's an aeronautical term there too. The left wing went down. The left wing is retreating. The right wing is advancing. There's a differential of speed increasing toward the tip, right? Decreasing the tip on the retreating wing, right? And you throw in left aileron. That just changed that freaking angle of attack from, I don't know, from, we were flying along at 18, right? But the air pocket changed it temporarily to 20. It induced the stall, the drag, So us sharp pilots, okay, what we do next is we throw in left or right aileron. What do we do? Left wing. You just increase the angle of attack substantially. 5 degrees, maybe more. Now how's the left wing doing? More worser. What about the right wing though? Because you always got to think about the right wing. Left, more worser. Right wing, more gooder. And so here's what happens. Yeah, it's the beginning of it. If you do it at about 1.3 BSO, it's a stamp roll. You do that, it's an aerobatic maneuver. Pretty easy maneuver to do. You get going, you pull it up, you stall it, and just as it stalls, you kick left rudder, and that is one wing up, one wing to slow down. That changes the relative wind. Can you see that? If the wind is hitting here like this, okay, on both of these wings, it's coming at you. And then we speed up and this drops, this one lifts, you change the relative wind as well. It's like in a car where it's always on your palm of your hand. You just change the relative wind of the airplane. It's hitting it different. Because the wing's not going like this anymore, right? It's dropping. See? That changes the angle of attack. It's very simple, basic aerodynamics. So you crank that right wheel over there, you make it more worser. And if you're close to the ground, the airplane actually sticks in the ground. I've seen it happen quite a few times. Since I've been here at this EAA, it happened to Dan Schroeder, Bud, right? Yeah. It happened to the guy in a 340 at PCW. Remember that one? Here's from Mansfield. Now, well, that was another one.
Okay.
But this one happened about 5 years ago. It hardly ruins the airplane, but it kills everybody. It just sticks in the ground like a toy. The guy that took off out of, not Napoleon, but the one down there further, it's on the highway. I forget it, but
In front of,
he took off and lost an engine. And he screwed up and stuffed it in. Not Bluffton, no.
Was it really?
Yeah, Wasion. When was that? About 3 years ago.
Next to the woods?
Yeah, he took off, lost an engine. They said they always say you lose an engine, but anyway, that's what kills guys right there. That happens all the time because you not knowing simple, basic, elementary aerodynamics. And this is not a matter of opinion or conjecture. It's decided in the court of physics. There is no arguing it. There is no leniency or anything like that. Now you can build some leniency in, but that's another discussion. Basic, unadulterated aerodynamic angle of attack. That's what you get there, a stall spin accident. Okay? So got that, right? Okay. So now we're all experts, right? So now that we're all experts, we understand angle of attack and what a stall is and separation and all that happy nonsense, the redheaded stepchild and so on and so forth, right? Which one of you ace pilots is going to tell me how to recover from that situation?
Use rudder.
Maybe some rudder.
Why would you use rudder?
Because that will lower the airplane and cause the wing that's dropping to have a lower angle of attack and regain lift.
That's part of it. And the judges will accept that, but it's not the best answer.
advance their tree.
You induce yaw in that stall, and you're going to try and correct for that.
Imagine this airplane's going 100 miles an hour right now, right? Got 100 miles an hour. And I kick the rudder pedal. How fast is that right wing going?
105.
105 faster.
100 plus, right?
Yeah.
How fast is this airplane? 100 less, right?
Right.
Do you remember what the recipe for lift is?
Yeah, speed plus angle of attack.
Is the speed different on the wings? So lift is different. So if we are flying along close to critical, and our left wing, its air pocket, do what 99% of the private pilots and the professional pilots today, I'm sorry to say, would do, is we crank that steering wheel over to the right.
Mm-hmm.
And it has an outstanding chance, even though a Part 23 airplane is designed to be stable enough to have a ham-handed pilot, ham-fisted, ham-handed, you know what I'm saying, right? Pilot, mishandle it, heavy ham. They try to make them stable enough where that won't happen, but it can happen, and it does happen. And there are videos on YouTube that are all day long of guys doing this. Okay? So that I just discussed right there is pretty simple. You're not going to get it all right now. Maybe you do. Maybe, you know. But if you think about it, it's lift plus angle of attack equals, or no, speed equals lift plus angle of attack, and you always get drag. You increase the lift, you increase the drag. When you go too far, what's that called? Critical. Critical angle of attack. There's a term for this lift that's developed on this side of the lift slope curve. That's called dynamic lift. I don't know what they call this lift, aerodynamic lift, I guess. That's dynamic. And here's an example. When I let go of this thing, it's not going to drop like a stone. It's got a little bit of lift to it, like a parachute, you know? And that's what you got when you got an airplane in a stall. You lose all of your lift. You lose a portion of it, but you really increase the drag. That's the big thing. You change the angle of attack when you change your flippers. Angle of attack is the single most important thing to understand about how to fly or how an airplane flies. because now that we're all experts on it, let's look at a rudder, okay, of an airplane. It's a top view, right? Okay. Top view, rudder. Okay. The kids like to get a hold of these and they bang them in.
Get rid of them. Just throw them out.
Yeah, but then I wouldn't be going through this if I did. That's a lousy picture. You see that? It's supposed to be a symmetrical airfoil. Where's the one good one? One underneath there. It's supposed to be a symmetrical airfoil. Not good. But the cord line would go right down the middle of it, right? If this is the hinge point, right? This is a top view of a rudder fin, vertical stabilizer. Back, up and down, back wing. That's what I call it. That's this thing right here, right? What's this portion called?
The rudder.
It's the rudder, and what is this dimension?
The back part.
Cord of the rudder. It's the cord of the rudder. That's the leading edge of the rudder. That's the trailing edge of the rudder. The span of the rudder goes from here to there. You kick this rudder over one way, and what have you done? You have changed the angle of attack. And so what you're doing is the Bernoulli stuff and the Quanda stuff, second, it's like fourth fiddle. What it is, you're bouncing a bunch of molecules off in that direction, and it's Newton's, what is it, fifth law, equal and opposite? Which one is it?
Third law.
Third law, equal and opposite reaction. That's what makes an airplane fly, primarily. The propeller, what is the propeller doing? It's a wing going through the air. Does its relative wind ever change? Yes, sure. Relative wind is always changing, or can change. You can make it change, or outside forces can make it change. The result of the change is always the same. You know, it'll have an effect. Angle of attack applies to everything. A stall is when drag becomes greater than lift. Do you crash? No. Is there something to be afraid of? No. Everybody is, though, because they don't understand it. And so that's what they to compensate for it. How much time we got left?
About 45 minutes, actually.
Now I'm gonna
Yeah,
with
can I ask you
Steve.
one more question?
Yeah, go ahead.
How much on a typical Part 23 airplane wing, how much of the lift is being in cruise flight is being created by the Bernoulli principle or over the top of the wing? How much of it is whatever you call it on the underside?
Enter. I don't know.
2%.
If I was gonna guess,
Yeah,
2%.
yes.
I would say
2%.
depending on the airfoil, let's use a symmetrical airfoil. Symmetrical airfoil has the same center of pressure on the top and the bottom, right? But we haven't talked about center of pressure, but it produces the same amount of lift on both the top and the bottom of the airfoil. If it's a wing, like the stunt plane I used to have, is symmetrical. It's curved on the top just like it was curved on the bottom. Okay. In that case, then I would say that in a symmetrical airfoil, lift is equal on both sides, so it has to be all angled attack.
No, that wasn't what I'm talking about. So let's say you're just in cruise flight with a regular airplane wing. Just wondering how much of the lift of the plane is created by that Bernoulli versus.
I just said all of it,
balsa wood plane.
or none of it. No,
There's
none
no
of it.
airfoil, right?
Right.
There's no Bernoulli.
I say none of it. Now, I'm not an aerodynamicist
None of it's
from Bernoulli or Quanda.
oh, really? It's all from underneath.
It's all from, and I could give you an example of that. But let me type this in first, because hyper WARRIOR crash.
You want to know, Lauren, how much, relatively speaking, does the camber of the wing produce by the pressure of the wing, the high pressure flow? And I would say that that is relative to what the camber of the wing is, and the speed, which is produce.
All right, I'll be more specific. A Cessna 172 wing cruising 100 knots. How much of it's being carried? How much of the weight? The 2,300 gross weight's being carried by one principal. How much by the other?
Okay, well, and I think that the only way to answer that would be, it would be specific to that airplane, because that wing is, or specific to that wing.
50 or, I mean, that's sort of curiosity.
Okay, here's what I do know.
And the more of it, the length of that wing, you know.
This is what I do know.
specific to that.
The answer
Nobody's
to your
going to answer.
question is,
Nobody will get this right, but you have all the knowledge to get this next question right. So bear with me for just a minute. This is symmetrical airfoil. It's curved on the top the same as it is on the bottom. If you look at high performance stunt airplane now, from the center pressure, which we haven't talked about, but that's the thickest point of the wing, to back here, it's straight, perfectly flat as a tabletop. That's how they do it. It is symmetrical. So where would this pressure be greater or lower, on the top or the bottom? No, it doesn't. This curve is the same on both
if
sides.
the angle of attack is 0, the pressure is the same on both the top and the bottom
Correct.
of the wing.
It's a function of the angle of attack.
Correct. So the only thing that's holding up is the angle of attack. Now, we haven't talked about this, and I don't want to get into too deep, but when you turn an aileron, correct? We talked about that. One goes down, one goes up. One increases the angle of attack, one decreases the angle of attack. One increases the lift, one decreases the lift. One speeds up, one slows down because one has more drag and one has less drag. Okay? So, if you displace, I'm going to roll to the right. What will this wing aileron do? Go up or down? The answer to that would be yes. You have to go up or down, right? What's this aileron going to do?
Down.
It's going to go down. What's this one going to do?
Up, up, up.
Which wing is going to have more lift?
That one.
Which
one
one's
that
going to have less?
increased the angle of
That one.
attack. So
Which is going to have less drag? More drag, less drag, right? So what happens is, if you take your feet off the pedals and you push the steering wheel over, which way is those going to go?
Wrong way.
Yeah, it's going to go to the left. And that's what's going to happen.
And there's your,
So you got to use a little bit of right rudder, keep it centered, okay? Got that? Now, here's the next question. Everybody knows what I'm talking about, the coordinated turns. I teach this thing called Dutch rolls, and what it is back the airplane, try to keep the airplane going straight like this. If it's uncoordinated, it'll go like this. And it makes you sick in just a few minutes. It makes me sick, and I do a lot of aerobatics. So teach people to do this, add a little bit of rudder. So we're going to roll this to the right. The nose is going to swing to the left, but we're going to kick rudder, keep that thing straight. That's called a coordinated turn. That's called flying by the seat of your pants. And you'd be pressed in your seat right through your body like that, right? And you can turn left and you can turn to the right. Adverse yaw is an asymmetry of lift that comes about because of the asymmetrical lift produced by the displacement of the ailerons. Okay? So that very same airplane, Lauren, you have adverse yaw. I'll take my little stunt plane that I had to coordinate it. But then when you pull hard into the vertical to do vertical rolls, got that? You dive down like crazy, pick up as much energy as you can, hard into the vertical, because you want as much energy as you can when you get to the vertical line. And then what do you do to hold the vertical line? How much lift is the wing producing?
0.
Correcto. So when I go to stick the stick over to do a vertical roll, how much rudder do I give it?
None.
That is correct. Very nice. Hardly anybody knows that. But that's a fact of adverse yaw, lift, angle of attacks, drag, relative wind, all that. When you pull hard, and that's the hard part, you'll be doing, say, like rolling 360 where you're kicking the rudder all over the place trying to do that, right? And then they have you go into a vertical thing. You got to remember not to push on the rudder because you're going up and you don't have lift anymore. So, how much of it is developed? What kind of a question is that? I don't know, but I do know this.
Well, you stimulated the interest in my mind when you talked about
Yeah.
the rudder being all deflecting and no Bernoulli.
Yeah.
And same principle, I've always been curious about propeller. How much is a propeller creating that thrust? How much of that's Bernoulli versus, I don't even know what the other one's called. How much of it's
Fonda, but we would pronounce it Conda.
Honda?
C-O-N-D-A.
Always curious. Both propellers?
I don't know, but I would suspect that I do know this. You don't need no airfoil when you can make it fly. It could be a flat surface. I do know this. If you make it into an airfoil shape, it flies more gooder. And I know that this is not a lifting airfoil, but that's a great aerobatic airfoil. If you reduce the, what's this part? It becomes a very nice high-speed airfoil. But if you curve one side of it, it becomes a higher lifting airfoil. And if you put a little it's called undercamber in it, where you make it look more like a bird wing. That's a lousy picture, but you see the undercamber? See if you draw a straight line there, you can see how that tucks up. That's like flying around flat. So that's a very high lifting airfoil. This is a non-lifting airfoil, but it has its applications. Most of your back wings are not lifting airfoils. They're just like, especially on your tube and fabric airplanes, like the Pete, they're perfectly flat. So, you know, I don't know the answer to that question. But now you're supposed to remind me. Where was I? Is anybody paying attention? Stalling has. I'm going to tell you. I'm going to lay something else on you. Has absolutely, positively, in no way even attached whatsoever, ever under any circumstances, to do with a stall. What did he just say? Speed has nothing to do with a stall. I'll go over it one more time. Speed has nothing to do with a stall. Now, who believes that? You're sitting there listening to me stall. You don't count. You're sitting here listening to me talk, but you're thinking.
With anything you say.
Yeah, well, that's what I like, Dave. That's exactly what I like. Uh-oh, Elaine, words? Did you, were you thinking about, you were going to ask a question or something?
I'm just trying to understand all this.
Speed, well, understand this. Speed has nothing to do with a stall.
It's just speed plus lift, or speed plus angle of attack equals
There's
lift.
only one thing that will cause a stall.
Exceeding the critical angle.
Meeting or exceeding the critical angle of attack. Period. Why do they call it stall speed?
Because the only way in most airplanes you have of getting in approximation to angle of attack is your airspeed indicator.
Yeah, this is what I say, Hank. It was a mistake. If you ever flown, has anybody ever flown a VOR?
Well, who has?
They call it, well, a lot of, I fly with kids now that never flown VOR. Never flown single pilot, never flown anything other than a big airport. So, but a VOR says to and from, right?
Yes.
It's in Ludlow. It's amazing how difficult it is to teach VORs. And the reason why is they use the word to and from. I'm no English major. They sound like verbs to me. But the to and from don't describe an action. They describe a noun. Why they call it to and from? It's a mistake. And we're all paying for it. Especially if you try to teach somebody. What they should call to is reciprocal. What they should call from is radial. So when you center the needle and it says radial and you read the number, that's the radial. It was a mistake, and stall speed was a mistake. And we got to wrap this up, don't we? 6:30. We start at 6:30, 7:30.
6:30 to 8:30.
Oh, okay, so we still got. I could still keep going then. Huh?
You got about.
Just tell me when to
You
shut
got
up.
about 23 minutes.
Just tell me when to. Okay, good. Then let's spend a few minutes on this, right? Now, this is how I like to. It's not totally factual or completely true or whatever you want to call it. Speed has nothing to do with the stall. It's like an accident, a car accident. If you go to work and you stop at a stop sign and you are sitting there and somebody plows into you and they're drunk, right? in our society, the way we have it all figured out, you're not at any fault at all. The other guy is, right? He goes to jail. But this is what I would submit. Why'd you go down that street? Why did you go at that time? Right? So there is some connection. So this is how I like to draw the connection. Well, no, lawyers. We want to get into that. But I'm going to ask you a question. Who wants to answer the question before they know what it is?
What's the question?
Anybody? No. Okay, I'm going to ask you. Do you have any money on you right now? Just answer yes or no.
Yeah.
Do you have a lot of money or a little money?
From my point of view, it's a lot.
Okay, you have a lot of money. Do you want to tell us how much money you got on you?
About $100.
Now compare that to the national debt. Is that a lot of money?
No.
No. What if you're buying bubble gum? Yeah. Right? Well, speed has to do with the stall about as much as his $100 has to do with the national debt. It's like you can't get in an accident without participating, you know? I don't care what the attorneys say. There's a little bit of a tie in there, you know? So there is something to do for all practical purposes. I'm not at fault because I sit at the stop sign and the guy drunk hit me, you know? Speed, for all practical purposes, doesn't have anything to do with the stall.
So what you're saying is, if you didn't have relative wind, if you had no wind, you would have no stall. So,
You'd also have no
No,
light.
I didn't say that. I'm glad you said that. Because no, that's not true.
so let's say you're in a vacuum. Okay.
I
I mean,
Where's the clicker? Yeah. No, here I got a better way to explain it.
Too, but
Okay, in Curcio, you've heard this one before. Okay. You got a 747, right? How fast is 747 taxi?
Taxi?
I can tell you a taxi.
25.
If they're on their way home, it'll be at least 25 minutes. And they'll overshoot that stop at the gate, you know, and you'll feel the airplane go like that. But, okay, so Lauren, you say 25 knots. So say 30 miles an hour, right? Okay, so now we're in a 30-mile-an-hour 747, right? And we're taxiing along, and I take the steering wheel and I heave back on the steering wheel. What is that going to do? The steering wheel's hooked up to a cable. What's that cable hooked up to?
Elevator.
Goes to the back wing. I call them elevators flippers. What's that flipper going to do? It's going to change the angle of attack. How is it going to change the angle of attack? It's going to deflect upward, which creates what kind of a lift? Negative lift or positive lift? Right? Okay, so it creates a negative lift, and now lift the nose up, right? What will that do to the front wing? Increase angle of attack. The airplane fly away, right?
Well, no.
No, because of weight. It weighs too much.
If it was weightless, it would.
That's it. That's it. If you had a magic wand and you could make it weigh 100 pounds, when a guy did that, the airplane would leap into the air. Can we draw a conclusion here?
Carry passengers.
It was below stall speed, right? Right? Was it stalled taxiing down the runway at 30 miles an hour?
No.
Matt. Is it stalled below, Randy? It's taxiing 30 miles an hour. Is the airplane stalled? You have the answer.
It's not exceeding the angle of attack, so no, it's not stalled.
That is correct. When that airplane taxis out, you saw the video of the streamlines, right? That wing's going through the air just like that, and the air's going over the top and over the bottom, and it's creating lift just like Dave Bernoulli or Quanda or whoever the hell said. It's making it. It's doing it. It's not stalled. It ain't nowhere near as close to critical. It's not stalled. But it won't fly either because it weighs too much. The illustration that I like to give on what stall speed is what follows. Number one, stall speed is a mistake. It should be called stall index, right? What's that mean? Well, here in America, what we do for everything is we mark it, right? So Tom builds an airplane. He says it'll stall at 50 miles an hour. Well, I say my airplane, well, I installed at 45. And then somebody else say, well, I installed at 30. You know, for the same, all things being equal, the same airplane, you know, 4-place airplane, whatever, right? Well, because that's what we do. We put spin on stuff, and we market stuff, and we sell stuff. Well, our friends at FAA said, that ain't fair. You know, there's got to be guidelines. So here's what they came up with. There's just a short laundry list that we all should be familiar with. A very short laundry list. Stall speed, what do I say it should be called?
Stall index.
They made a mistake and they call it stall speed. What's the max takeoff airplane? Give me a number. 3,000 pounds, okay? Every one of us manufacturers, I think I had 3 of us manufacturing airplanes. Our airplanes all weigh 3,000 pounds, right? Stall index is the slowest speed it can go and lift 3,000 pounds. What would be the angle of attack that it would be at?
Right more critical.
Exactly. That's where you would get the most lift. You'd have the airplane at 3,000 pounds, right? And you'd be going the slowest speed. Let's just pick a number. Miles an hour. Okay, that's whatever, right? That's the slowest speed that airplane will go at its highest angle of attack and produce the 3,000 pounds it takes to lift it. But there's more. But wait, there's more. Under standard atmospheric conditions. Because on a hot day, it's different than a cold day. Airplanes fly a lot better in the winter than they do in the summer, if you're talking about climb, but they go faster in the summer than they do in the winter because the molecules are spread further apart. So we want to standardize this stall index. So standard atmospheric conditions, what are they? They're
92, 59.
I always use this. It's one of those things I've known too long, you know. They do 29.92 in
15
inches.
Celsius.
What is that hectopascals?
10, 13.
Very good. Excellent. Hank knows this stuff. That's the pressure, the atmospheric pressure, right? So and it's 59 degrees F.
59F, 15C.
Right?
Same thing.
Everybody's got to test their airplane at 3,000 feet with that pressure, with that temperature. There's one more thing.
Probably humidity.
Sea level.
Oh, yeah.
That's your basic thing. So we got 3,000 pounds, okay, under standard atmospheric conditions at the temperature and the pressure at sea level, okay? So here's how we're going to prove to the FAA that this thing works, right? We're going to go down to North Carolina, where the Ohioans discovered flying. It says that they discovered flying, but all the great aviators come from Ohio. And we're going to go down there. We got a railroad track next to the beach, okay? It's got a flat car on it. And we're going to mount our airplane on it. And the 4 of us are going to get in this airplane. And we load it up to 3,000 pounds. And we got it on a jack that puts it at what angle of attack? Just shy of critical, maximum angle of attack, right? Conductor, get this bad boy going 50 miles an hour. There's no wind, right? And we go 30, we go 40, we get up to 50 miles an hour. We're sitting there. Homer's in the left seat, and I'm in the right seat, and the door's on the right seat. And I say, hey, damn, we're not lifting off. Because we're going 50 miles an hour at 3,000 pounds, blah, 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 blah. How come we're not off? I think I forgot to undo one of the straps. Hang on. Pop the door open. I go down. I hop off the airplane. I turn around and look at it. It's up in the air 50 feet and flying away. It's because my 130 pounds is off the airplane. 145 pounds is off the airplane. So, changed in that scenario. The weight. The weight, which is one of my favorite songs by the band. But that's another discussion. So are we picking something up here?
I missed it.
Well, did you? What I got off the
I
airplane.
got lost.
Okay, we got the airplane on a railroad car, a flat car. We got it jacked up so it's its max angle of attack, so it's produced the most coefficients of lifts for us, right? We got 4 guys in it. We got loaded up 3,000 pounds. We're at Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. The pressure is 29.92 and the temperature is 59. That's all standard. Everybody's going to compete in this contest has to test their airplanes under those conditions. So we get in there and we tell the conductor to get it going, right? We go 30 miles an hour. Nothing's happening. We go 40 miles an hour. Nothing's happening. We get to 50 miles an hour, and according to us, the thing's supposed to fly. Okay? But it's not flying. It's just sitting there. So I say, oh, I think I forgot to undo one of the straps. So I hop out of the airplane. I hop onto the cart, and before I turn around, that airplane's going up in the air. What speed was it going? Right. And it's flying away now because I got off of it. So the weight affects the stall speed. What do you think the stall speed is after I get out of it?
Less.
That's a good answer. Less. Because the airplane weighs less. Now, if it got up off of the rack, but I grabbed the step before it could get away, and I hung on to it, and then you came up, and I was hanging on to it, you'd be able to lift the airplane up with a finger or bring it down because it'd be at neutral buoyancy. You know, if in the same thing, all 4 of it stayed in there, and you got up on the anybody got up on the car, they'd be able to lift it up because it wouldn't weigh anything. You'd be able to push it right back down too. That's getting in pretty deep, you know. So the stall speed would be less than 50. So why do they call it stall speed? It was a mistake. It leads you to believe that speed has something to do with stall. It don't. It's the reduction of weight that allowed the airplane to fly away. Now we're going to get on the other side of that. Okay? We got our same barn burner special, and we're all going to get in it. We're going to put that half a moose in there, right? We're going to top that bad boy off, and it's summertime. Okay? We're sharp.
9,000 feet in Taos, New Mexico.
And so we pour the coals to it. And where am I going with this, Hank? I'm forgetting where I'm going. Oh, actually, wait a minute. It's got 4 seats, but guess what? We bring Ludlow along with us.
Wow.
He got a cooler. He's got a cooler with a case of Mick Light full of ice. And his 2 Doberman Pinscher dogs. Okay? So, are we over max takeoff weight, or what you guys call gross takeoff weight?
Nope.
Over it by a lot?
Any is a lot.
Well, it's 3,000 pounds. We bring another 2 more. We're about 600 pounds over max takeoff weight.
20%.
That's a lot, right? That ain't nothing. That ain't
Wouldn't
nothing.
your stall speed go up then?
You're damn right it will. In fact, it will.
Yeah.
But-
Would it go up 20%, like the difference in the weight?
Yeah, more or less, kind of, sort of. But you got to also throw in the fact, I went wrong in my description. I put in hot day scenario, which is a pilot thing, hot day, short runway, and all that stuff. I shouldn't have done that. What I should have said is I put another guy in there, and he's got a lot more weight. He's got dogs and everything else. We'll say it's still standard atmospheric conditions, but we're a lot heavier, 600 pounds more. We're only designed to lift 3,000. We got it 600 pounds over mass takeoff weight. My question was to you, all you pilots, is that a lot? And you go, yeah, that's a lot over. And I tell you, that ain't nothing. Because let's take one of the pilots out of the airplane, one of the people. We had 4 of us. We got Ludlow and his dogs and his cooler and every other crap, right? Let's go back to the same scenario. Let's kick one guy out. There's only 3 guys in the airplane now and half tanks. Okay. How much does the airplane weigh? Okay, I don't know. Give me a number. 22 or 3 or something like that, right? We pull 3 Gs. What's 3 times the 27? Help me with that. 7,000 pounds, right? It pales in comparison to the 6,600 pounds of bringing the extra guy and the dogs. So, how do you make an airplane heavy? You put fat guys in it, right? You put gas in it, right? How do you make it really heavy?
You accelerate it.
G's on it.
You pull G's. That's how you make an airplane heavy. It's energy management. Okay? And how much does this thing weigh right now? You all know the answer to this.
1 G.
That's right. That's how pilots think. We all weigh 1 G right now. How much does it weigh right now?
0.
Now, I don't really know. What is the definition or the speed or whatever it is of gravity? Is acceleration of something times
32 feet per second
per second square. So if I drop this pencil, but it has a small parachute on it, and it drops at half the speed, what does it weigh?
Half G.
Half a G.
Okay. So in an airplane when it's climbing, 3,000-pound airplane when it's climbing, does it weigh 3,000 pounds?
Straight in a
Unaccelerated climb.
in an unaccelerated climb, it still weighs 3,000 pounds.
But in the acceleration of the climb,
It
Less.
weighs more if you're climbing.
so when you're coming in for a landing, does your airplane weigh more or less?
Less.
Whenever somebody asks you a question that has 2 answers,
Yes.
you can always go, yeah.
It weighs the same on final, but it weighs more as you're flying.
Yeah. But what if you come beam the runway and you roll it right down like that and you fall right on down like that? How much does that airplane weigh?
If you're just allowing it to be more or less free fall,
Free fall.
A lot less.
a lot
What
less,
would your stall speed be?
A lot
probably
less.
0.
That's called energy management. Being cognizant of that. When you start pulling on that steering wheel, you start loading that airplane up. You start making it heavy. So if you were in a stall situation close to the ground, you know what you can do? Nothing, because it's too late. You should have known this before. You unload the airplane immediately. You know, how do you unload it?
Real far. Unless you're upside down.
Close to the ground. You got to have the presence of mind, the understanding. Stan did in our movie. He knows the only way to save your butt is not to get there in the first place. But if you do, you have to unload the airplane. You have to make it weigh less. And the only way to do that is to follow gravity. That will make it weigh less. One more thing I'm going to throw in there. So stall speed is a variable. It's never the same. It goes up and down weight. I'm going to say that wrong. The speed at which an airplane stalls goes up and down. Stall speed is a mistake. It leads people to think that speed has something to do with the stall. They should have called it stall index. I'm going to close with one more of my little peas. And I could probably pull this up on the computer, but you guys will recognize it from the get-go. Yeah, everybody had to take this, had to answer this question on their private pilot check, right? Or what do you call it, written test? You know, and this is airplane at 0 degree bank, and this one is, I don't know, 45 and 60. I don't know what they are, Dave. What is it, 60 gets 2 Gs?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that. It's not because a 60 degree bank is not. It's not. If you think if you get a 60 degree bank, you got twice the stall speed. You don't know how. Period. There's the caveat is in a they call it a level turn. That doesn't sound right to me, but in a turn you're holding your altitude, right? Constant altitude. Then you would have 1G, and I forget what the progression is. But if anybody's taken their written test,
60 degrees to 2 Gs.
yeah, there's that little chart. So what that does is lead you to believe that bank increases your stall. It doesn't. And there are many examples of that being the case. What increases your stall?
Weight.
That's it. That's the only thing that does it, okay? So if you add weight, the stall index goes up. If you take weight off, the stall index goes down. You can, by putting fat guys in it, you can pull G's. And G's are what we're concerned with here in our left turn to final stall spin accident. I'm losing my track. If you, anybody know what edge flight is?
Yeah.
Okay. There's probably could have a video of it. How you do knife edge? It's just a real simple maneuver. You come down to the runway, you get as fast as you can go. Airplane about 15 degrees, then you roll it like this, okay? And you down the runway like that. And the fact is, you can't. Some airplanes can actually. Model airplanes can, but they can actually do knife edge loops. But how much is the wing lift? Is the wing producing?
Probably
Zero.
What's the angle of attack of it?
Negative
Zero, right? What causes a stall? You meet or exceed your critical angle of attack, period. So here's a guy in 90-degree bank, right? And he's flying sideways like that. That is not stall. And depending on the aerodynamics of the fuselage and how much power that it has, it depends on how far it can go. You can do rolling slow rolls. Fly on and go this slow, and the wing never stalls. You can do rolling 60s, and you're way over 90 degrees. The wing never stalls all the way through. How you do stall an airplane is you load it up. And if you're holding your altitude, flying on straight and level, you got to have 1G. We all got 1G right now. At your intermediate thing, the G's up. And if you're at 60 degrees, it's 2 G's. It's not the angle of bank. It's the G loading on the airplane that you're putting in. If you put it in that angle of bank, let the airplane fall, you don't have to worry about stalling. You're not going to stall if you manage your energy right. So that's basically all I got to say about that. What? Oh, get out of the light?
No.
That's pretty much everything I got to say about angle of attack and stall. And a few examples how to mismanage or misunderstand how to fly. When you stuff that airplane right in the ground, it happens way too much. Now, it's not just a misunderstanding in most of the cases, and the guy becomes distracted or whatever. There's never just one element in there. But the number one thing is to fly the airplane. And it's difficult to fly the airplane properly if you don't know this stuff here. And if you know this stuff here, it's so much easier to fly. And I will say just one more thing, and then we'll have a question and answer. Everybody read Flying Magazine? Right here, NTSB says that angle of attack indicators are going to make us safer pilots. Right? Do you know what an angle of attack indicator is? It's a little gauge that tells you what your angle of attack is. I got a lot of time flying radio control model airplanes. I got 0 instruments in there, and I always know what my angle of attack is because I understand all this stuff, right? However, do you have an angle of attack indicator in your airplane that you fly? And I'll answer, yes, you do, Mark Homer. There's not an airplane out there that you've flown that doesn't have an angle of attack indicator in it. Nope.
Your stick.
What? You've been listening to me too much, Curcio. The steering wheel. The stick. If the steering wheel is out of trail, what is trail?
When the ailerons
Or the flipper back or the rudder are in trail, right? That steering wheel is in a certain part. or a certain position, right? Right? Now, if we slow down, what's the two things you need to make lift? So if we take away some of the speed, but we're going to hold our altitude, what do we got to exchange our speed for? More angle of attack. So how do we get that? Pull the steering wheel out, right? So no longer is, I don't have a steering wheel, but no longer is the steering wheel right here. When you have it trimmed out right here, you slow it down, now the steering wheel's right here, right? Slow it down some more, now the steering wheel's right here. Slow it down some more, steering wheel's right here. Let's go do a loop, okay? We're diving. Where's the steering wheel? Let's push it in a little bit, right? What's your angle of attack? Yeah, it's very low. That's why you're picking up a lot of speed, because you're getting rid of a lot of lift. Therefore, you're getting a lot of drag. And you're getting into energy that you want to do to pull up over the top of this loop, right? So now we pull back on the steering wheel to pitch from a down to an up line and even go over the top. What do we do with the steering wheel? Go up, guys.
You pull back.
Yeah. You pull back a lot or a little? Loop. What do you think? I mean, you guys go out and loop all the time, right?
Pull back a lot.
Yeah, you pull back a lot. So is that a lot of angle of attack or a little bit of angle of attack? Okay, can anybody increase the angle of attack of their airplane without pulling the steering wheel back? I'd like to see you do it. I'd like to see you do it. You cannot change the angle of attack without changing the steering wheel in reversible flight control airplanes. That's the caveat. What's reversible flight controls? Well, the airplanes you fly are all reversible flight controls. If you go in the cockpit and you move the steering wheel, the flippers move, right? If you get outside the airplane and you move the flippers, the steering wheel moves. That's called reversible flight controls. Airplanes that I fly or the military airplanes have non-reversible flight controls. You go inside and you can pump the steering wheel, the flippers flip all around. You go out to grab a hold of the steering or the flipper, you can't move it because it's not reversible. The hydraulic pressure has got it held. It's like power steering. So you'll never fly, more than likely, never fly a non-reversible flight control airplane. All of your airplanes have reversible flight controls. You cannot increase the angle of attack without pulling the steering wheel out, period. So what you could do is you could get it going as fast as you can and put a mark there where the steering wheel goes in, and you could label that F for fast. Okay, and then you could go out there, you could pull that steering wheel all the way out in a stall. Now you may be able to get it to stall before it comes all the way out, or some of them, like my airplane, won't stall even after you got it all the way back out. That has to do with center of gravity, and that's about stability, and we're going to talk about that another day. But you could pull the steering wheel all the way out, but put in S, slow. Or you could mark all the way in, 0 degrees angle of attack, pull it all the way out and mark it 18 degrees angle of attack, and have interim things in there. And if you want to look at the stall or the angle of attack to determine what it is before you crash into the ground, look at that. It'll save you a lot of money. But if you know this basic elementary, what do you call it, aerodynamics and energy management, hopefully you can keep your nose clean. Anybody got any questions? Oh, Tom wants to say something?
Before you're done, I want to.
Yeah. Well, is there any questions?
Yeah, yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead. And you know, here's the thing. If I don't know the answer, I'll make you so eloquent. I'll make it up. So I'll believe you.
I didn't get all the information down, so.
Well, didn't you watch the first, if you're not getting your hair cut, you're not going to see the guy's house, take your head to the.
Because I didn't listen.
No.
Well, you know, a couple questions you asked and you got an answer over from somewhere over there.
Yeah.
Not a good answer.
Well, here's the thing. Anybody, I know that you didn't, nobody in here picked up what I said, because this is what I do for a living. I have to kind of crap all the time. I'm just like you. Take this Airbus. You got to really pay attention. You got to go over it 1 million freaking times. You're not going to get it from this thing. This is just like a primer. So don't, you know, I want you to know that nobody else has got it. Not, nobody's gonna be an expert
Well,
on it.
they probably have.
Go ahead.
Towards the end there, you were talking about the weight and the stalling index,
Yes.
and, you know, the plane. You said add weight and the stall index goes, and then you take off weight. and
yeah,
the
it goes
stall
up.
index goes- Add weight, it goes up.
Yeah.
And if you take off weight, it goes down.
Right. Well, you know, there's no such thing as stall index because I wasn't around back when they invented that term. But I would have said, hey, boys, let's not do this. But it's really called stall speed.
Yeah, well, I
Yeah.
was using your term.
Right. Or actually, no, it's the speed at which the airplane.
That,
The stall speed is a fixed number that's in your book for purposes of standardization. I don't know, the airplane flies 50 miles an hour, 55 miles an hour. That has nothing to do with the stall. You can make it fly slower, fly slower, unstalled, than what the stall speed is if you take the weight out of it. And you can make it stall at a much higher speed if you load it up with ease. The steering wheel.
And that's why they make it all standard. At all your configurations, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
It will start.
Because